I'm Dr. Yogan Pillay. I'm the Director for HIV and TB Delivery at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me to present at the Interest conference in Maputo. I'm very sorry that I'm not able to be there in person. The title of my talk is Where Are the Missing Children and How Do We Close the Pediatric HIV Gap? So the first, of course, question we need to ask is, why should we be concerned? And there's very good reason to be concerned. A child dies from AIDS-related causes every 5 minutes. In 2021, which is the latest data we have globally, 160,000 children newly acquired HIV, and children accounted for 15% of all AIDS-related deaths, despite the fact that only 4% of the total number of people living with HIV are children. And, it's the reason why the Global Alliance plan was developed. And I put a quote here from the Global Alliance plan, which was released earlier this year. And it says, year on year, the same poor progress has been reported towards global and national targets for children and adolescents, despite available, affordable, and highly effective tools and programming strategies to diagnose and treat HIV amongst children, adolescents, and pregnant and breastfeeding women. Large service gaps for these populations remain, close quotes. So few opportunities exist currently to provide HIV testing for children who are missed by vertical transmission services or who acquire HIV during breastfeeding. A particularly important issue is the comparatively low rate of viral suppression amongst children relative to adults in Eastern and Southern Africa in particular. Although 66% of HIV-positive children in the region know their status, tragically, only half are virally suppressed. Various initiatives have been launched, at least since 2015, and this slide basically speaks to those initiatives. 2015, we had the global plan towards the elimination of new HIV infections amongst children. In 2011, we had Keeping Their Mothers Alive, which has been credited with increasing national and global attention to the prevention of vertical transmission. Moving on, in 2016, we had the Start Free, Stay Free, AIDS Free partnership, the so-called 3 Frees, which was launched, but unfortunately has had limited impact due to challenges in sustaining long-term leadership, lack of consistent funding, and insufficient engagement with national leaders and communities of women living with HIV. And of course, late last year, we had the launch of the Global Alliance to End HIV by 2030. So we've had various initiatives. So how large is the challenge of finding these missing HIV-positive children? In 2010, an estimated 21% of children living with HIV had access to treatment. This increased by 2015 to 49%. So in 2019, an estimated 950,000 of the 1.8 million children living with HIV aged 0 to 14 globally were diagnosed and on treatment. So 53%, up from 49% in 2019. However, this is compared to 68% of adults. The target for 2020 was 95%. So you can see again, we are way below the target. So below 2015 and 2019, there was only an increase of 4% of children globally who had access to ART. This means that about 850,000 children are still not diagnosed and on treatment. That said, the new infections unfortunately continue to grow. In 2020, an estimated 150,000 children acquired HIV globally against a target that we had set for 2020 of no more than 20,000 new infections. According to UNICEF, between 2010 and 2021, new infections amongst children declined by 52%. So there was a decline, so there's some progress. Despite these declines, the number of new infections remains high. In Eastern and Southern Africa, there was an estimated 74,000 children newly infected with HIV, which is 49% of the number infected globally. And UNICEF estimates that in 2021, more than 75,000 new HIV infections in children occurred because pregnant women were not diagnosed and initiated on treatment. So this slide basically shows access to ART over the number of years. The yellow bars are pregnant women living with HIV, and the green bars are children living with HIV. And you can see we're doing much better with pregnant women than with children globally. The treatment coverage rate for children in Eastern and Southern Africa is currently 57% compared to 78% of children. Heart coverage for children was 56% in 2020, but fell to 54% in 2021, largely because of the COVID impact, on which decreased access to treatment. And according to UNICEF, the percentage of children 0 to 4 living with HIV and not on ART has risen over the past 7 years, climbing to 72% in 2021, which regrettably is the same as in 2012. So very little progress in children 0 to 4. Moving on then, in the interest of time, this slide basically shows children aged 0 to 14 years relative to adults across a number of Eastern and Southern African countries and a number of countries in Sub-Saharan Africa. And again, you can see this is from the Start Free, Stay Free, AIDS Free initiative in 2019. Again, you can see children are doing much more poorly in terms of access to ART compared to adults. Coverage by region, the percentage of children receiving ART in Eastern and Southern Africa, 56%. In other regions of the world, even worse. In the West and in the Middle East and North Africa, you can see the percentages are even lower than the East and Southern Africa. Infants tested within 2 months, again, you can see Eastern and Southern Africa doing reasonably well, the other regions very, very poorly. So, even within Africa and within the WHO regions, there's a significant difference across these cohorts, and the same with pregnant women. This slide shows new child infections due to gaps in prevention of vertical transmission in Eastern and Southern Africa. And you can see that the big challenges are really around mothers starting antiretrovirals late in pregnancy. That means children get infected during breastfeeding, mothers starting antiretrovirals during pregnancy. So, it's really focusing on the mothers will give us a bigger impact on children being born HIV negative. Why is there limited access? According to the Alliance, it's still stigma, discrimination, punitive laws, policies, violence, and entrenched social and gender inequalities. For pregnant women, especially those living in remote and rural areas, these challenges are heightened. In South Africa, adolescent mothers in rural areas in particular struggle to access services, and we know that mobile HIV services can increase access to testing and initiation on treatment. What's the status in Eastern and Southern Africa with boys? This slide shows boys, the trends in the epidemic, both with respect to incidence and deaths. The next slide shows girls, and you can see girls are particularly affected and affected to a greater extent than boys. And if you look at children 0 to 9, you will notice the following, that children 0 to 9 living with HIV between 2010 and 2021 decreased in Eastern and Southern Africa. New infections decreased, deaths decreased, but the numbers are still unacceptably large. So what do we need to do about stopping vertical transmission? We need to improve the health and well-being of mums, including regular HIV testing, preferably at each antenatal visit, initiation on ART, and support to ensure viral suppression during pregnancy and throughout the breastfeeding period. According to UNICEF, coverage for lifelong ART amongst pregnant women living with HIV increased slightly in the last decade, and antiretroviral coverage for pregnant women living with HIV is considerably lower in Western and Central African countries, such as Nigeria and Angola, below 50% than in Southern Africa. So there are some parts of Africa doing well, but there are certain countries that are doing rather poorly. Of concern is that 1 in 5 children born to mothers living with HIV in Sub-Saharan Africa become HIV positive during childbirth or breastfeeding. I won't go into this. This is basically the 4 pillars in the global strategy, the Global Alliance to End HIV in Children by 2030. I think we now know where the gaps are and what needs to be done. We also have the Dar es Salaam Declaration that was agreed to by ministers of health in Sub-Saharan Africa earlier this year. And this provides a list of what needs to be done. One challenge, though, There's nothing wrong with this list. It's all the right things. The challenge is not knowing the how. What's missing here is the how. How will we do this? So there's some guidance about what needs to be done in terms of the how. And in a paper that I co-wrote with some colleagues, which is in press, we come up with some of the granularities of what needs to be done. And this slide basically speaks to the granularities. All newborn babies exposed to HIV should be tested at the time of delivery or at the first postnatal visit, which should be between 4 and 6 weeks postpartum. Infants who contract HIV must start treatment immediately, because without early treatment, the survival past 2 years declines by about 50%. More resources should be made available to achieve the following targets in Eastern and Southern Africa. 95% of HIV-exposed children tested by 2 months. And again, after cessation of breastfeeding, 95% of infants tested for HIV received test results no later than 15 days after bloods were collected. 95% of infants diagnosed with HIV infections initiated or not no later than 15 days after receiving test results, and 85% of all HIV-positive children on ART must have viral suppression levels by the end of 2023 and 95% by 2025. And we ask for a multi-pronged approach, especially in Angola, South Sudan, Eritrea, and including in rural areas, which again, as we've said, have poor coverage. What will it take to find the missing children? Going beyond the what, it's fairly clear that one size does not fit all. So one plan for a region, a country, even a district within a country is not good enough. We need context-specific interventions. We need to co-create these interventions with families, caregivers, and health workers. We need to focus more on implementation science to tell us to move from the knowing to doing. And that's fairly clear. We know a lot about what needs to be done, but not as much about how it can be done. And we need to really create a facility that would ensure that whatever the implementation science comes up, we can scale up through developing innovative solutions. One way of doing it is networks of care, which is, I think, a very nice definition of networks of care is one presented by Carmone and others in 2020, which reads as follows: groups of public and or private health service provider sites deliberately interconnected through an administrative and clinical management model, which promotes a structure and culture that promotes and prioritizes client-centered, effective, efficient operation and collaborative learning, enabling providers across all levels of care, not excluding communities, to work in teams and share responsibility for health outcomes. So we think that networks of care are part of the how we can find the missing children and also initiate them and keep them on treatment to ensure high levels of viral suppression. This includes, of course, their mothers and caregivers in their community. So this is a pictorial on what networks of care can be and how they can be organized. And again, in the interest of time, I won't go through the detail. It's a relational model. It has governance elements as well as monitoring and accountability. And it really focuses on optimizing linkages and continuity for efficient and resilient health systems. And the reason we think resilient health systems are important is because we know that not only from COVID, from our early experience with HIV, that if we don't have resilient, especially primary healthcare systems, we will not be able to reach the missing children, put them on treatment, and ensure their viral suppression levels. Finally, I want to say there is an initiative to generate African voices through an Africa-led HIV working group. So while Sub-Saharan Africa has made notable progress towards achieving the 95-95-95 targets and working towards ending AIDS by 2030, many challenges remain, including weak health systems, ownership, policy and legislation challenges, etc., which threatens long-term sustainability of the HIV response. The HIV response has largely been led to date by international experts, with funding support from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, an African-led HIV Control Working Group is being constituted, the aim of which is to develop a shared vision on how countries in sub-Saharan Africa can prepare for long-term sustainable HIV control. The composition of the working group is a diverse group of African experts with relevant experience in HIV control, health systems, finance, policy, etc., together with civil society and activists, private sector, academia, implementers, and policymakers being represented. The expected outcomes from the establishment of this group are threefold. One is an effective African-led HCWG that contributes to an acceleration and coordination of government and stakeholder efforts for HIV control in sub-Saharan Africa. Secondly, a framework for reducing HIV as a public health threat and reprioritizing HIV prevention in sub-Saharan Africa, which should impact on the attainment of the 2030 targets, which we've all agreed to. And finally, one of the outcomes from the work of this group over a 2-year period would be to come up with recommendations that can impact policy formulation. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this at the interest workshop and conference is that we would like to encourage wide-scale African voices telling us through this working group what will work to get HIV control in sub-Saharan Africa. So this is an invitation to everybody who's listening to this presentation to get involved through this working group in formulating sustainable interventions that's African formulated and African led and largely African funded, even though we fully accept that there is a role for external donors to support this African initiative. And then finally, my conclusion, many initiatives have been launched since 2015 with some progress. There are key challenges in meeting well-meaning objectives, including lack of political will and lack of sustainable resources. There is, thankfully, a renewed interest in pediatric AIDS, which we should not waste. The what is clearly defined, as are the targets. The challenge remains with the how. Some examples of the how are providing learning networks that can generate caveats, but the caveat is that one size does not fit all. And I want to quote from the Lancet editorial that came out earlier this year, which says all pediatric HIV infections are preventable and no child should develop AIDS. I think we have the means, we have the tools, we need the how, and we think that implementation science, as well as learning networks together with networks of care, should provide the how to ensure that all pediatric HIV infections are preventable and that no child should develop AIDS. I thank you for your attention.